Daniel woke before the sun, as he always did, long before the first streaks of gold began to stretch across the city. It wasn't that he suffered from restless sleep. Rather, it was a rhythm his body ached. By the time the sun had climbed higher, the apartment felt warmer, lighter, more open. Daniel wiped his hands on his apron and glanced at Elena, who was perched on a stool by the counter folding the last few pieces of laundry. She hummed quietly, a tune so familiar that it had embedded itself in his memory, and he paused, simply watching her. The rhythm of her movements, the casual tilt of her head, the way her hair caught the light, it all made him realize how profoundly he loved these ordinary moments, these quiet fragments of life that most people overlooked. "Do you ever think," Daniel began cautiously, "that one day we'll look back and laugh at all of this?" Elena looked up, a small smile tugging at her lips. "At the laundry, the dishes, the mopping?" she teased. "We might, or maybe we'll just sigh and remember it fondly." Daniel laughed softly, shaking his head. "I mean, all of it. All of it together. The routines, the small disasters, the little victories." She leaned over, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "I already remember it fondly," she said simply. "Even when the detergent spills, even when you drop the spoon in the garbage disposal." He groaned, though it was all in good humor. "Hazard pay, Elena, hazard pay." With the last laundry folded, they carried the baskets toward the bedroom, then stacked them neatly in the corner. The apartment, though still modest, felt larger now, somehow filled with light and movement, laughter and quiet reflection alike. Daniel moved toward the kitchen table to begin lunch preparations while Elena tidied the counter and washed a few stray dishes left over from breakfast. He chopped vegetables for a simple salad, listening to the soft rhythm of the knife against the cutting board. Every slice, every precise motion felt both mundane and oddly comforting. There was a strange intimacy in this, the ordinary acts of preparing food, the quiet laughter when one of them would spill a bit of lettuce onto the floor, the shared glances and gentle teasing that passed between them. It was a language of domestic life, spoken without words, understood perfectly by the two of them. Elena wandered over, inspecting his technique with mock-serious scrutiny. "Careful," she said, pointing at the knife. "That carrot has ambitions, you know. It wants to escape." Daniel raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Is this carrot your newest enemy?" "Enemy?" "No," she said, her tone teasing but affectionate. "It's a worthy opponent, and I expect you to be victorious." He laughed, slicing the carrot with exaggerated precision. "Victory shall be mine!" As they worked, small mishaps continued to punctuate their rhythm. Daniel knocked over the olive oil bottle while reaching for a pepper grinder. Elena let out a playful groan, catching it just before it hit the floor. A stray cherry tomato rolled under the refrigerator, prompting a joint, albeit slightly exaggerated, rescue mission on their hands and knees. Each tiny disaster was a chance to laugh, to tease, to interact, to slow down and appreciate the moment. Once the vegetables were chopped, Daniel reached for the dressing ingredients: olive oil, lemon juice, a pinch of salt. He mixed them with deliberate care, watching the thin stream of liquid curl and mingle in the bowl. Elena observed, leaning casually against the counter, sipping her water, her expression soft but amused. "You know," she said after a moment, "you could write a novel about this." Daniel looked at her, eyebrows raised. "About chopping vegetables?" She smiled. "About us. About mornings like this. The small victories, the tiny disasters, the way we argue over folding socks. It's kind of beautiful, in a quiet way." He laughed again, shaking his head. "I suppose that makes me a domestic hero then." "You are," she said seriously, though the corners of her mouth twitched. "At least in our kitchen." Lunch was simple, but the act of preparing it together made it feel special. They moved seamlessly around one another, Daniel plating the salad while Elena arranged the bread on the table. The sunlight now poured fully through the windows, highlighting the steam rising from the freshly boiled eggs and casting gentle shadows across the tiled floor. They paused to admire the simple spread, and in that brief silence, there was a profound sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just food, they were building a life. One small, intentional act at a time. Daniel poured them both glasses of water, and they sat down to eat. Conversation was light at first. Observations about the city outside, plans for later in the day, small jokes and teasing remarks. But gradually the dialogue deepened, as it always did when the mundane acts of living faded into the background and they were left simply with each other. "Do you ever wonder," Daniel asked softly, "if other people have mornings like this? Quiet, careful, ordinary, but perfect in a way?" Elena considered it, biting into a piece of bread. "I think some do," she said finally, "but maybe not with the same details. Maybe not with the same rhythm. This is ours, and it's perfect because it's ours." He reached across the table, taking her hand. She smiled at him, fingers curling around his, the contact warm and grounding. Outside, the city buzzed and hummed, cars weaving through streets, people rushing to appointments, dogs barking, distant music drifting from a window across the alley. Inside, their world was slower, deliberate, focused on small gestures and shared understanding. After lunch, Daniel began clearing the table while Elena washed the dishes. They moved with familiarity, anticipating each other's actions. A dropped plate, a spilled crumb, a forgotten utensil, all became opportunities for laughter and gentle teasing. They found joy not in perfection, but in the imperfect, in the small failures that bound their day together like threads in a tapestry. By mid-afternoon, the kitchen sparkled, the counters gleamed, and the apartment hummed with a quiet orderliness. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching Elena dry the last dish, and felt a wave of contentment wash over him. These hours, so ordinary, so repetitive, were the heartbeat of their life. In them was love, laughter, and a quiet sense of permanence that nothing outside could disturb. The sunlight had shifted, softer now, warmer, pouring across the floor in a broad golden sweep. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching Elena finish drying the last dish, the faint scent of lemon soap mingling with the lingering aroma of their lunch. Outside, the city moved faster, the hum of traffic increasing, snippets of conversation drifting up from the street below. But inside, the apartment felt suspended, caught in a delicate, slow motion that belonged only to them. "Shall we step out for a bit?" Daniel asked, stretching his arms above his head. He had been restless after the morning's chores, needing movement that the apartment could not quite satisfy. Elena glanced up from the towel she had just folded. "For a walk?" she repeated, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It's warm enough, I suppose. Just don't get us lost this time." He grinned, rolling his eyes playfully. "I promise, just a short excursion, strategic reconnaissance." Dressing quickly, they slipped out into the late morning air. The city greeted them with its usual cacophony, distant horns, children shouting from a nearby schoolyard, a dog barking insistently down the block. But as they moved away from the main street into the quieter avenues lined with trees, the noise softened, the rhythm slowing to match their own pace. Daniel noticed the small details he often overlooked. The pattern of sunlight on a brick wall, a bird hopping from one branch to another, the faint smell of freshly baked bread from a corner bakery. Ach, Observation felt intimate, almost sacred. He realized that walking together like this was another kind of domestic ritual, a continuation of the morning's rhythm outside the walls of their home. Elena paused at a small park, crouching briefly to inspect a patch of wildflowers that had pushed through cracks in the pavement. "Look at these," she whispered, brushing a tiny bloom gently with her finger. "They don't care about the cracks, they just grow." Daniel watched her, feeling a quiet admiration. "Resilient," he said softly. "Like us." She laughed, a soft, musical sound that mingled with the wind in the trees. "Resilient, sure, but less dramatic." They continued their walk, pausing occasionally to watch the city's rhythms, someone unloading crates of produce onto a market stall, a cat lounging on a windowsill, the delicate arc of a cyclist navigating the street. Every small gesture seemed amplified in their awareness, a reminder that the world existed in layers, and they were seeing it from their particular, intimate angle. Returning home, they carried small treasures from their walk: a sprig of lavender from the park, a stray feather, a crumpled leaf. Elena placed the lavender in a jar on the windowsill, arranging it carefully as Daniel unpacked the groceries they had picked up from a small corner shop. Each item was a new piece of their shared world, a thread woven into the fabric of the day. Back in the apartment, they resumed the gentle, deliberate rhythm of domestic life. Daniel began preparing a small snack, slicing fruit, arranging it on a plate, while Elena tackled some minor tidying, fluffing pillows, dusting the low shelves, straightening books that had fallen over. The air was filled with the sounds of their activity: the gentle chopping of fruit, the soft swish of a duster, the quiet scrape of a chair being moved. As they worked, conversation drifted naturally, flowing from small